"Get out. You don't belong here, old man." The words tore through the diner like a blade as the bully's fist cracked across Harold's weathered cheek, snapping his head to the side. The sound echoed louder than the clinking forks, louder than the sizzling grill in the back. For a moment, the entire diner froze. Booth conversations died mid-sentence. Coffee cups stopped halfway to trembling lips. All eyes turned to the scene unfolding by the counter, where arrogance met frailty and cruelty met quiet strength. The bully, a broad-shouldered man named Travis with a leather jacket stretched across his chest, smirked with satisfaction. His voice carried that venomous tone meant to wound deeper than any punch. "I said leave. You don't belong here. People like you, old, washed up, pathetic. This place ain't for you." His words dripped with hate, designed to strip dignity as much as the slap had stripped silence. Harold sat stunned on the red vinyl stool, his hand rising slowly to his cheek. His skin burned where Travis's knuckles had landed, but it wasn't the pain that seared him most. It was the humiliation. Decades of service, medals that once gleamed in the sunlight, years of carrying himself with quiet discipline, all reduced in a moment to laughter echoing across the diner. And the laughter came, sharp and cruel. Travis's two friends at the booth hooted and clapped like hyenas. A couple of younger patrons chuckled nervously, pretending it was all a joke, even as their eyes betrayed unease. Others looked away, pretending not to see, too cowardly to intervene. To them, Harold was just another frail, elderly black man, bent with years, gray curls peeking from beneath his cap, trembling hands wrapped around a coffee cup. To them, he was invisible, until the slap made him visible, but only as entertainment. Before I go on, smash that subscribe button, hit the like, and comment where you're watching from, because what's about to unfold isn't just a story. It's a lesson in justice, power, and the moment when humiliation turns into reckoning. You don't want to miss this. Harold didn't move. He didn't shout. He didn't even glare. His calmness infuriated Travis. The bully wanted fear, wanted begging, wanted submission. Instead, Harold sat there, jaw tight, back straight, eyes fixed on his half-finished slice of apple pie. His silence was louder than any curse he could have hurled back. Travis sneered, leaning in close, his breath reeking of beer and bitterness. "Look at you. Can't even defend yourself. What's the matter, Grandpa? Did your strength rot away with your youth? You should have stayed home where you belong." With one shove, he knocked Harold's coffee cup over, hot liquid spilling across the counter and dripping to the floor. The crowd gasped, but nobody moved. A waitress, young and nervous, inched forward. "Please, sir," she whispered to Travis. "Let it go. He's done nothing wrong." Travis turned on her with a glare, sending her retreating back toward the kitchen. His control of the room was absolute. At least, that's what he thought. Harold inhaled slowly, steadying himself. His hands shook, not from fear, but from restraint. He had been through worse than this. He had marched through deserts with no water, bled in battles where bullets rained like storms, buried friends younger than Travis who had died with more honor in their last breath than Travis could muster in a lifetime. He could endure this. But endurance wasn't the same as weakness. And Travis had no idea who he was dealing with. Another shove. Travis's hand crashed against Harold's chest, sending the old man stumbling off the stool and to one knee. The diner erupted with murmurs. A mother pulled her child closer, whispering, "Don't look." Two men in suits shook their heads, muttering about causing a scene. But still, nobody stood up for him. Travis laughed again, cruel and triumphant. "See? On your knees. That's where you belong." His voice rose, filling the room, demanding an audience. He wanted everyone to see Harold humiliated, reduced, broken. But Harold wasn't broken. Not yet. His hand pressed to the floor, steadying himself, and then moved to gather the quarters that had spilled from his pocket during the fall. Each coin clinked softly as he picked it up, tiny echoes against the diner's oppressive silence. But as his hand hovered over the last coin, his fingers froze. Not from weakness, but from choice. Slowly, deliberately, Harold straightened. His knees cracked, but his back was unbowed. He rose with the weight of dignity that no fist could take away. His hand didn't reach for the coin anymore. It reached for something else. His phone. The diner watched in stunned silence as Harold placed the phone on the counter and slid his thumb across the screen. His calm movements made the room's tension spike. Even Travis faltered, his smirk twitching into uncertainty. What's this? Calling your nursing home? Or maybe the cops? Travis spat, trying to reclaim dominance. He snatched the phone, glanced at the number on the screen, and tossed it back on the counter. Nobody's coming to save you, old man. You're nothing. Nobody. You don't belong here, and nobody cares. But Harold's eyes told a different story. Behind the weariness was steel. Behind the silence was fire. He had lived long enough to know that respect isn't begged for. It's demanded by presence. He didn't need to shout. He didn't need to fight. All he needed was one call. The bully didn't know. The diner didn't know. Nobody in that room knew that the man they mocked, shoved, and humiliated was the father of one of the most powerful men in the country. His son's hand didn't just hold a badge. It held authority that stretched across borders, carried weight in war rooms, and commanded respect from presidents. And now, with one call, that power was coming. Outside, unnoticed, headlights pierced the night. Black SUVs pulled into the parking lot, their engines growling like beasts in the dark. Harold sipped his water slowly, ignoring the trickle of blood on his lip from the earlier slap. His gaze met Travis's, steady and unyielding. For the first time, Travis saw something he couldn't mock, an unspoken warning, a storm gathering. The bully puffed his chest one last time, desperate to cling to control. What? You think you're scaring me, old man? You're nothing but a joke. But before he could laugh again, the sound of car doors slamming outside made the entire diner turn their heads. Shadows loomed at the frosted windows. Boots hit the pavement in unison. The diner windows rattled as the dark SUVs pulled up outside, engines growling low like predators circling prey. The laughter that had filled the room moments before evaporated into uneasy silence. Diners leaned toward the glass, their whispers sharp, nervous, almost afraid to say what they were thinking. Nobody moved, but everyone felt it, the shift in the air, the tension that squeezed like a fist around the room's throat. Travis, oblivious, tried to shrug it off. What? Don't tell me you're scared of a few cars pulling up. Probably just cops here to grab their donuts. He laughed loudly, desperate to prove he still owned the room. His friends laughed too, but their eyes darted nervously toward the window. They weren't as confident as he was. Harold stayed seated, calm, still, his weathered hands folded in front of him like a man at prayer. He didn't need to move. He didn't need to explain. He just sat, his presence heavier than stone, his silence louder than Travis's noise. His phone lay face up on the counter, the screen dark now, but the call had already gone through. The first SUV door opened with a heavy thud. Boots hit the pavement. Not one, not two, several pairs, striking the ground in perfect unison. The sound carried into the diner like a drumbeat, measured, disciplined, terrifying in its precision. The chatter stopped entirely now. Forks were set down. Even the fry cook in the back froze with his spatula midair. Something was happening, something beyond the ordinary. The door to the diner creaked open, and in stepped men in black suits, tall, broad, and commanding. Their presence swallowed the room whole. Sunglasses masked their eyes, but their expressions didn't need to be seen. Their aura screamed authority. The Homeland Security insignia gleamed faintly on their lapels. These weren't random cops. These were wolves answering a call. Travis's smirk faltered. For the first time, he hesitated, his words sticking in his throat. What's this? What the hell are you all doing here? His voice wavered, but he tried to puff his chest out again, turning to the diners as if demanding their support. Nobody answered him. Every gaze was locked on Harold, the old man sitting so still, so calm, so unshaken despite the sting on his cheek and the blood on his lip. The lead agent scanned the room slowly, his expression unreadable. Then his gaze landed on Harold, and instantly his posture changed. Respect. Deference. The kind of recognition that couldn't be faked. He stepped forward, lowering his sunglasses, his voice deep, controlled, and heavy with reverence. Sir. That single word hit harder than Travis's slap. The diners gasped softly, exchanging shocked looks. Sir. Not old man. Not mister. But sir. With respect dripping from every syllable. Travis blinked, confused. Wait a damn minute. What's going on here? He's nobody. Just some washed-up old fool taking up space. He laughed again, but it rang hollow now, brittle, desperate. The agents ignored him. All their focus was on Harold, who gave the smallest of nods, his hand brushing his cheek briefly as if wiping away not just blood, but the insult Travis had tried to brand him with. His silence was power, and in that silence, the room understood. This man wasn't who they thought he was. One of the agents stepped aside, and from the second SUV came another figure. Younger, taller, broad-shouldered, his suit crisp, his eyes sharp. The resemblance was undeniable. He was Harold's son, and not just any man. He was the head of Homeland Security, the man who held power in his words, authority in his presence, and fear in the hearts of those who dared cross him. The diner's atmosphere snapped like a live wire. Conversations died completely. Breath caught in throats. Every patron shrank back into their seat, as if trying to disappear into the upholstery. Nobody wanted to be seen now, not when the storm had entered the room. Travis, for once, didn't laugh. His face paled as realization crept in. His mouth opened, but no words came. His swagger melted into sweat. The bully who had towered over Harold now seemed small, weak, cornered. He took a step back, his bravado cracking with every heartbeat. Harold's son didn't look at Travis. Not yet. He looked at his father. His voice was softer, gentler, laced with both respect and affection. "Dad, are you all right?" Harold simply nodded. He didn't need to say more. His quiet dignity said everything. His son's jaw clenched, his eyes burning with unspoken fury, not at his father, but at the man who had dared to humiliate him. Travis stumbled backward, raising his hands as if to defend himself. "I didn't know. I didn't know who he was. I thought, he's just some old." He cut himself off, realizing every word dug him deeper. The son finally turned his gaze on him, and the weight of that stare was enough to make Travis's knees tremble. The entire diner held its breath. The bully who had laughed, mocked, and slapped moments earlier now stood on the edge of collapse. The same mouth that had spit venom now fumbled for excuses. But Harold's calm presence remained the center. He hadn't yelled. He hadn't fought back. He hadn't needed to. His quiet endurance had set the stage, and now the world around him was adjusting to the truth of who he was. The agents fanned out, positioning themselves at key points in the diner. The atmosphere was suffocating, a storm pressing down on everyone's shoulders. Travis's friends had gone dead silent, sliding out of their booth slowly, trying to distance themselves from him, as if the shadow of his actions could consume them too. Harold lifted his glass of water, sipping slowly, his movements deliberate. The silence stretched, thick and unbearable, every second louder than the last. And then, just as Travis opened his mouth to beg, to plead, to explain himself, Harold finally spoke. His voice was steady, low, carrying decades of weight. "Respect. That's all any man deserves. You took that from me tonight." The diner froze at the sound of his words, their gravity filling every corner. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a shout. It was a statement, simple and undeniable. Travis swallowed hard, his throat dry, his body trembling. The bully had become the victim, and he knew it. The walls were closing in, the eyes of the diner boring into him, the authority of Homeland Security pressing down like a mountain. But Harold wasn't finished. Not yet. The silence in the diner was suffocating, the kind that makes your own heartbeat sound like a drum in your ears. Every eye was locked on the scene unfolding, nobody daring to breathe too loudly. Harold's son stood tall, his presence cutting through the air like a blade. Travis, the bully who had swaggered moments ago, was reduced to a shaking shadow of himself, sweat dripping down his forehead, his fists no longer clenched in defiance, but trembling with fear. "Dad, step aside," his son said firmly, not raising his voice, yet the authority in his tone cracked like thunder. Harold, still calm, still dignified, gave the faintest nod and leaned back against the counter, folding his hands in silence. He had already done his part. Now the reckoning would come. Travis tried to muster a grin, but it faltered halfway. "Hey man, listen, it was just a misunderstanding. Just a joke. Old man here. He looked at me funny, you know? I didn't mean anything by it." His voice cracked like glass, the confidence drained from him completely. The younger man didn't move closer, but the way he stood, the intensity in his stare, made Travis stumble back a step anyway. His legs wobbled like they might give out. His friends pressed themselves against the wall, silent, ashamed, desperate not to be dragged into the storm. The diners watched, wide-eyed. Some had their phones half-raised, tempted to record, but the sheer power in the room kept their hands frozen. Nobody wanted to be caught disrespecting this moment. It was too heavy, too dangerous, too raw. The agents flanking the room didn't need to speak. Their hands rested near their weapons, their eyes locked on Travis like predators eyeing prey. The tension was unbearable. Every second felt like an eternity. Travis licked his lips nervously. His voice stumbled out again, desperate, pleading. I didn't know, okay? I didn't know who he was. You can't blame me for that. He looks like nobody. How was I supposed to know he was your dad? The words sealed his fate. Gasps rippled through the diner like a wave. Nobody. That word hung in the air, ugly, poisonous, insulting. And now it echoed in the presence of a man whose quiet strength had already spoken volumes. The younger man stepped forward, just one step, but it was enough to make Travis nearly collapse. His voice was low, steady, every word slicing clean. Nobody? That nobody built this country with his blood. That nobody carried scars you'll never understand. That nobody is the reason men like me stand where we stand today. And you slapped him. The diner erupted in murmurs, the weight of the truth pressing on everyone's chest. Travis's face drained of all color, his knees buckling until he collapsed against a chair, gripping it as if it could save him from drowning. Harold sat silently, his gaze fixed on the man who had humiliated him. His calm demeanor only intensified the shame. He didn't need to raise his voice, didn't need to strike back. The world was doing it for him now. Travis's mouth opened, but no words came. He was choking on the weight of his own actions, suffocating under the stares of the crowd. Every diner who had once laughed at his cruelty now looked at him with disgust. The predator had become the prey, cornered and powerless. One of the agents moved forward, hand on Travis's shoulder. The bully flinched, nearly leaping out of his skin. His eyes darted around wildly, searching for an escape, but there was none. The door was blocked, the walls seemed to close in, and the judgment of the room crushed him. The younger man leaned forward slightly, his voice sharp, final, almost like a sentence being passed. When you lay hands on my father, you didn't just cross a line. You burned it. The diner held its breath, the air so thick it felt like it could shatter. Travis's chest heaved, his breath shallow and rapid. He looked at Harold, the man he had struck, his voice breaking into a whisper. Please, I didn't mean it. I swear. Don't let them. I'll do anything. Just don't let them. But Harold didn't answer. His silence was his verdict. His dignity was his weapon. His stillness was his punishment. The bully crumbled under it, collapsing fully onto his knees, his hands pressed together as though begging for mercy. The room that had once been his stage was now his courtroom, and his humiliation was the verdict everyone watched unfold. The tension didn't break. It only grew. Travis knelt on the diner floor, sweat dripping from his forehead, hands clasped together in trembling desperation. The same hands that had struck an old man now shook like leaves in a storm. His knees ground against the sticky tiles, the sound of his heavy breathing filling the silence. Around him, the diner patrons sat stiff, eyes wide, hearts pounding, every one of them witnesses to a reckoning they would never forget. The agents tightened their circle. Boots clicked against the tiles, earpieces gleamed under the fluorescent lights, their presence suffocating, their silence deafening. They were waiting for one command, one signal from the man who held all the authority in the room. Harold's son stood at the center, a storm wrapped in a tailored suit, his gaze unrelenting. Travis tried to speak again, but his voice broke into a pathetic whimper. Please, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. His excuses spilled out like dirty water, weak and unconvincing. The crowd looked on, some disgusted, some satisfied, but none offered him sympathy. He had crossed a line, and now the line had turned into a wall crashing down on him. The younger man stepped forward, slow, deliberate, every footfall like a hammer against Travis's crumbling pride. His shadow fell over the bully, swallowing him whole. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't need to. His words were knives sharpened on truth. You thought he was nobody. But that man you struck carried this nation on his back. You mocked scars you never earned. You spat on service you never gave. And you thought the world would let you walk away. Travis shivered, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. His arrogance was gone, stripped bare before the weight of truth. He looked around wildly, searching for someone, anyone, to stand for him. But every eye in the diner turned away. Nobody would defend him. Nobody would share his shame. He was alone. Harold sat still at the counter, his face calm, his eyes steady. He didn't need vengeance. He didn't crave violence. His very presence, his quiet dignity, was enough. His silence roared louder than any shout, and that silence crushed Travis more than any fist ever could. The younger man nodded once. The signal. 2 agents stepped forward, seizing Travis by the arms. He cried out, thrashing, but his strength was gone, his fight pathetic compared to the trained grip of men who lived in discipline and power. They wrenched him to his feet, his knees buckling, his legs dragging as they pulled him toward the door. The crowd gasped as Travis was shoved hard against the counter, his cheek pressed flat against the cold surface, metal cuffs snapping around his wrists. The sound of those cuffs was final, like a gavel striking wood, sentencing him without trial. The bully who had laughed moments ago now stood shackled, humiliated before everyone he had tried to impress. His voice cracked into sobs. "Please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Please, don't let them take me." But his pleas bounced off stone walls. No one reached for him. No one pitied him. The diner, once filled with his arrogant noise, now watched in silence as he was dragged through the same doors he had strutted in so confidently. The neon sign outside buzzed faintly as the agents pushed him into the SUV. The door slammed shut with a metallic finality. His cries were muffled, swallowed by the steel walls of the vehicle. The convoy of black cars roared to life, engines humming with cold precision, pulling him away into a future he would never escape. Inside the diner, the silence lingered. The patrons shifted, shame hanging heavy in the air. They had watched an old man humiliated and done nothing. They had laughed. They had whispered. They had averted their eyes. Now they sat with that guilt gnawing at them, unable to meet Harold's gaze. Harold's son looked around the room, his voice cutting deep. Remember this. Respect is not a favor you hand out when it's convenient. It's a right every human being deserves. You sat here and let this happen. Tonight, you learned a lesson. Don't forget it. His words sank like stones, heavy, undeniable. The patrons lowered their heads, their shame written across their faces. They would never forget. Harold finally moved, slowly rising from his stool. He smoothed the front of his jacket, ignoring the dried coffee stain from the earlier spill. His movements were calm, dignified, deliberate. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His silence was his crown, and the room knew it. His son stepped beside him, offering an arm. Harold hesitated for a moment, then accepted, allowing himself the quiet comfort of his son's strength. Together they walked toward the door, every eye following them, every head bowed in silent respect. The diner doors swung open, and the cool night air rushed in. The last sound the patrons heard was the steady rhythm of Harold's footsteps as he left, the same footsteps of a man who had marched through battlefields, carried burdens heavier than humiliation, and emerged unbroken. The neon sign flickered above the diner, casting its glow across the empty booths. Conversations slowly resumed, but they were hushed now, careful, heavy. The room had been marked by something unforgettable, and in that silence, one truth echoed louder than anything else. You never know who you're really dealing with. What do you think? Did Travis get what he deserved, or was the humiliation too much? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Smash that subscribe button, turn on the bell, and don't miss the next story, because what's coming next? It's even deeper, even more explosive, and trust me, you won't want to blink when it hits.